What's up YouTube and welcome to a new video. Now there's a lot going on in the Corvette C8 market, and a while back I made a video in which I showed you all the ins and outs of that market. You see, before production even started, Chevrolet had 40,000 C8s on order, and in 2020, due to several problems, they only produced 20,368 cars. Hence, demand was twice as large as supply and prices skyrocketed. Now personally, I would never pay a premium for a C8 Corvette. But perhaps that's also not necessary anymore. In this video I will show you what the current situation is in the market and if prices started to decline. Now if we start with the supply side, then we can see that things are still far from optimal. While many car manufacturers are plagued by shortages in the chip sector, the Detroit News reported that Chevrolet was dealing with supply problems for transmission parts, which led to a production stop. And in case you lost count, this is the 4th shutdown. Moreover, according to CNET, the shutdown lasted 1 week longer than initially expected. Now when we look at the demand side, then we can see that the C8 remains immensely popular. According to Isee cars, the C8 was also in March the fastest selling car for the 3rd consecutive month. On average, it only took 9.4 days to sell a C8, which in my mind is unbelievable. It is still a mass-produced vehicle, but the market segment it's operating in is relatively small. Look for example at the number 2 on the list, the Toyota RAV4. Those two cars couldn't be more different from each other. And as a result, GM Authority reported that there are 11,000 unfulfilled orders for 2021 cars and that it will take around 2 more months to fulfill all of these orders. And these are only the orders from customers who are already waiting for their car. Now due to this overwhelming demand, combined with some production hiccups, Chevrolet decided to stop taking sold orders from dealers for 2021 cars. After all, production for 2022 cars needs to start relatively soon. Now from all of this you can probably guess that prices didn't decrease. Let's have a look at the data and we start with today's market. The graph over here has the model year on the horizontal axis and the price in US dollars on the vertical axis. You can also see that each trim level is displayed with a color and that the black axes show the median price point for each trim level in a given model year. In today's market there are 812 cars for sale and the majority of them has the 2LT trim level. With only 143 cars, there are surprisingly few 1LTs for sale. Now when we look at the prices, then we can see that something is going on here. A 1LT tends to be offered for $97,000, a 2LT for $102,000 and a 3LT for $108,000. Now let's put this a bit into perspective. The MSRP for a 1LT already starts from $61,000, for a 2LT this is $68,000, and for a 3LT this is $73,000. Of course, you can spec up each one of them and increase the price with quite a lot. Yet, when I spec'd up a 3LT and ticked every box you can possibly tick, I end up with a price tag of $110,000. But look at this graph. How many cars are priced over $110,000? I tell you, 247. And these are not only 3LTs. You can also find plenty 2LTs and 1LTs above this price point. And in my opinion this is outrageous. You can even see that some people try to exploit this market disequilibrium to the fullest as prices go up till $220,000. Now that's perhaps an extreme example, but you can find many cars priced over $120,000. But I guess that you already knew that C8s were going for large premiums. The interesting question here is of course, did these premiums start to decrease over the last 6 months? As always, we will first have a look at the price change of the full market and then we will look at the details. The graph which is appearing now on your screen will help us with the price change in the full market. You can see that we have 3 price distributions, one for each date. In blue we have the prices of June 2020, in orange of November 2020 and in green for April 2021. And this graph shows that, indeed, prices went up. The green distribution is skewed more towards the right than the blue and the orange one. In June 2020, the median price for a C8 was $94,300. They then increased with $3,400 to $97,700 to end up at $101,900 in April 2021. And this price increase of $4,200 in the last 6 months is statistically confirmed. And this means that it is unlikely to be the result of chance. But to really know what's going on here, we need to of course look one level deeper. We need to figure out what the price changes are for each individual trim level. Could it be, for example, so that 3LT or 2LT prices went up more than 1LT prices? After all, 2LT and 3LT trim levels appear to be the most popular. Let's figure that out now. Yet, before we continue, if you enjoyed this video, please support the channel by smashing that like button. Thank you. Now then, the following graph shows the price development of the median price split by trim level. We have of course the 1LT, the 2LT and the 3LT. Now first, we can see that the price increase seems to flatten off for the 2LT and the 1LT, but that we can't really say the same for the 3LT market. In that market, prices went up with around $3,500 every 6 months. The median price for a 3LT was $100,000 in June and sits now at $107,500. If we look then at the 2LT market, then we can see that prices started at $72,000. However, after that they shot up to $98,000 and now they sit at $102,000. And this means that the price increase decreased with around 50%. Something like this we can also see in the 1LT market. Over here prices really skyrocketed after summer. They went up with $17,700, but there's a good explanation for this increase. But more about that soon. Now after this big price increase, prices flattened quickly. The price increase decreased from $17,700 to $7,000. And the result of this is that the price difference between the trim levels is now again stable. In June we saw that the 1LT was priced $28,000 lower than the 3LT and that this was $18,000 compared to the 2LT. In today's market the difference between the trim levels is much smaller as it sits around $5,000. And this is in line with the MSRP prices. Also there, the price difference between the trim levels sits at $5,000. So in that sense, the current prices reflect the MSRP prices. Let it be with a premium. Alright, we already have a clear picture of what happened in the market, but we can still look one level deeper. That will namely show us what happened to the supply side and to the spread of the prices. And you guessed it, that's what we will do now. Now the graph over here might look a bit daunting, but please stay with me. The columns over here represent the 3 different dates and the rows show the different trim levels. For example, the blue graphs show the 3LT market for each date. Now then, if we look from left to right, then we can see first of all that for all model years supply increased, but that most supply was added between June 2020 and November 2020. Back in June there were only 97 C8s on the market, and in November this increased to 606. And this increase was a lot more than what we saw in the last 6 months, as in today's market there are only 804 cars for sale. But now then, what else can we see from this graph? Well, you can see that especially the 3LTs are put up for extremely high prices. In November and now, there were a bunch of cars for sale which clearly stood out from the rest. These people, or perhaps dealers, really wanted to exploit this market, this equilibrium. Prices go up till $200,000. And I think it is remarkable that this is not the case for the 2LT and the 1LT. 2LT prices are limited to $130,000 and 1LT prices to $115,000. Now another thing which we can see is that the bottom of the 2020 market completely evaporated. For all the trim levels, you can see that the cars at the low end of the market disappeared. Unfortunately though, it is really difficult to find out what actually happened here. It could be so that the cars which were advertised close to MSRP all sold. Yet, many of you commented under my previous C8 video that many dealers advertise their cars for MSRP, but when you phone them they actually ask a lot more, or worse, they don't even have the car for sale. In any case, we can now see a similar pattern for 2021 cars. Look at how similar that price range is to the one of 2020 cars in November. Now before we move on, I still want to show you one more thing in this graph. We can see now why the price increase for the 1LT market was so high between June and November. The market in June was simply too small to say anything meaningful about the median price in that period. Alright, let's take a little break here and summarize what we just saw. Did the market cool down in the last 6 months? Not really. The prices still increased, albeit to a lesser extent. Now, like I already touched upon at the beginning of this video, this price increase of course follows from the market disequilibrium between demand and supply. It takes on average only 9.4 days to sell a C8 and production is still limited. However, if you are a long-term viewer of the channel, then you know that 99.9% of the cars lose money when you drive them, and some even quite a lot. But what's the situation in the C8 market? Do they also lose money if you add miles? In other words, can you buy a new C8, drive it for 10,000 miles and then sell it for the same price? Let's find out. The graph over here has the mileage on the horizontal axis, the price on the vertical axis, and is again split by trim level. You can also see that the different market days have a different color. Now finally, you need to know that this only shows the used cars. If we look then at the depreciation per 1,000 miles curves, then we can see that especially the one for the 2LT and 1LT are extremely flat. The 2LT sits at $562 per 1,000 miles, or 0.6%. The 1LT at $1,000 per 1,000 miles, or 0.9%, and the 3LT at $2,500 per 1,000 miles, or 2%. And especially the rates of the 1LT and 2LT are remarkable for such a new car. They are only a bit higher than the ones for the 981 Cayman, which I showed you in last week's video. 981 Cayman values are also stable, but the car is 5 years old. So the answer to the question is yes. If you bought a new C8 Corvette at MSRP and drove it for, let's say, 3, 4, 5,000 miles, then it is likely that right now you can sell it for the same price as which you bought it for. And with that, let's wrap up and conclude. Corvette C8 prices are high, very high, and as such, the market didn't change so much in the last 6 months. And therefore, I didn't change my opinion on C8 prices. I still think that it is wiser to wait a bit longer. I still see these markups as a temporary effect. Around 6 months ago, I said that it would probably still take a year for prices to cool down. And with a bit of luck, I still think that it might be feasible to see the first price decreases in the next 6 months. Furthermore, you need to realize that if you pay $30,000 to $40,000 over list, you enter a different ballgame. In that price segment, there are cars available from a different performance level. Think about a 570S, an R8 V10 Plus, or an AMG GTR. Moreover, these cars already took their first depreciation hit and might therefore also be financially the smarter choice. The C8s will first of all lose their premium and after that start to depreciate like a normal car. So especially if you paid a lot over list, the initial impact can be very high. But again, let me reiterate that the fact that I wouldn't pay over list for a C8 doesn't mean that you shouldn't. If the C8 is your dream car and you want to have a new one right now, by all means go for it and enjoy your new car. And with that we arrive at the end of the video. Now if you like this data-driven way of analyzing cars, but would have liked to see it for a different car, please comment the name of that car down below in the comment section of this video. Once there are enough requests for a certain car, I will make a video about it. Don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification bell so you get actually notified when your requested analysis goes live. In the meantime, you can also browse through my channel. Over there you will find many more depreciation analysis for a large variety of cars. You will find, for example, analysis for McLarens, Porsches and Ferraris. Now as always, thank you for watching and I hope to see you next week for a new analysis.